This is CBN NewsWatch.
It is Friday, July 24th. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Ephraim Graham. We begin this half hour with a coronavirus milestone for the United States. More than 4 million cases. The crisis has forced President Donald Trump to cancel plans for a 4-night Republican convention in Florida. He's also softening his stance on schools reopening and asking Congress for $100 billion to help schools to open safely. Heather Sells has the latest.
The president is still pushing to reopen schools, but he acknowledged it might not be possible in the hardest hit areas.
In cities or states that are current hotspots, and you'll see that in the map behind me, districts may need to delay reopening for a few weeks, and that's possible. That'll be up to governors.
But he insisted every school should be preparing to open and said many districts can reopen safely as long as they have necessary measures in place. He's also encouraging parents to make their own decisions for their children, and that may include leaving the public schools.
If schools do not reopen, the funding should go to parents to send their child to public, private, charter, religious, or homeschool of their choice. The key word being choice.
The CDC issued new guidance for parents on Thursday, much of it emphasizing the importance of reopening schools. It acknowledged how little is known about how the virus spreads among children. It also noted some data that suggests that kids are less likely to get it, and if they do, less likely to get seriously ill. And also because of the virus, the president called off plans for the Republican convention in Jacksonville, Florida.
I'll still do a convention speech in a different form, but we won't do a big, crowded convention per se. It's just not the right time for that.
A small group of delegates will formally nominate the president in Charlotte, North Carolina on August 24th. The event is expected to last just 4 hours. Heather Sells, CBN News.
China is ordering America close its consulate in the western city of Chengdu. The move follows the U.S. order for China to close its consulate in Houston earlier this week over allegations of spying. China's move is the latest twist in an escalating conflict. The nations are still at odds over trade, China's handling of the coronavirus, and accusations China is stealing U.S. technology and intellectual property. In its notice to the U.S., China warned, quote, U.S. citizens may be subjected to prolonged interrogations and extended detention for reasons related to state security. A series of recent mysterious explosions inside Iran have left many wondering if these mishaps are sabotage against the Iranian regime. As Chris Mitchell now reports from Jerusalem, one of these explosions is getting more attention from intelligence experts than the rest.
The mysterious events range from a shipyard fire to a gas line explosion. While no clear evidence has surfaced regarding sabotage as the cause of all these explosions, Israeli investigative journalist Ronan Bergman says one clearly stands out at the Natanz nuclear facility.
The bombing there, the explosion, the blast that destroyed the whole facility for the installment and balancing of centrifuges in Natanz was a direct result of a pre-planned sabotage. Whoever was behind that demonstrated, I think, the highest capability, nothing less than exquisite, of intelligence collection.
Experts estimate the damage at the facility sets back Iran's nuclear program by as much as 2 years. An unknown group calling itself the Homeland Cheetahs claim responsibility, but might not be the only actor involved.
In the New York Times, we have quoted a Middle Eastern intelligence source that said that Israel was behind this blast.
Bergman draws no connection between Israel and the Homeland Cheetahs. He suspects the Natanz attack could be part of a bigger U.S.-Israel plan.
In another report, we indicated that there are American sources, together with Israeli officials, are thinking of a new policy towards Iran. So not just this specific incident, but a bigger policy that this sabotage is part of, a campaign of calculated operations, not trying to open war with Iran, but trying to send a message that Israel or the United States, or Israel and the United States, would not accept the continuation of the advancement of the Iranian nuclear project.
He adds it's all part of a secret war between Iran and Israel and the U.S. going back more than 30 years since the Islamic Revolution in 1979.
The war has already started. It's ongoing. It's not happening in the battlefield with thousands of tanks and airplanes, but it's happening as war are happening in 2020. Clandestine operations, secret operatives going undercover, smuggling explosives into sensitive facilities, cyber attacks, and everything that is happening in Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq.
The clandestine war pits Iran's regional and nuclear goals against both Israeli and American attempts to do everything they can to stop Iran from getting a nuclear bomb and dominating the Middle East. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
And Chris Mitchell is joining us live from our Middle East Bureau right now with more. So, Chris, do you expect any retaliation by Iran against Israel because of this attack?
Well, it is possible, Ephraim, and it really depends on how much Iran really wants to confront Israel right now. They do have a lot of internal pressure right now, economic collapse, social unrest, and even as George Thomas has reported recently, a lot of Iranians are turning to Jesus right now. So there's a lot of things going against the regime. Right now, actually, Ephraim, there's tension on Israel's northern border. The reason for that is that just a few days ago, Israel attacked a Syrian installation. Apparently, a high-ranking Hezbollah member was killed in that attack, and so there might be retaliation by Hezbollah against Israel on the northern border. The IDF is sending more troops up there. We'll see what happens, but there is a possibility that Iran could somehow, some way, at their own choosing, retaliate for what's happening inside their nuclear facilities.
I want to turn now to something else. Let's get the latest on the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul, where President Recep Erdogan is now proclaiming a mosque.
Well, we understand that today President Erdogan is going to begin starting Muslim prayers at the Hagia Sophia. There was a lot of world condemnation when he made that a mosque just a few days ago. Some of the history behind that, it was built back in the 500s. It was the largest church in Christendom for about 1,000 years. Then it was turned into a mosque in 1453. Then back about 100 years ago, in 1934, it became a museum that reflected sort of the secular roots of the way Turkey was right now at that time, back in 1934. Just a couple of days ago, Ephraim, we interviewed Boston Celtics center Enes Kanter. He's a Muslim. He's a Turkish citizen. He, among many, he objects to that mosque, and he says there's many mosques in that area. They're already half empty. He's very critical as well about Erdogan and his human rights abuses, jailing journalists, more journalists in jail in Turkey than any other nation on earth. And right now, he's actually expelling many Christians right now from Turkey.
Chris, I understand there have also been daily demonstrations against Prime Minister Netanyahu in recent days. How dangerous is this for him?
Well, it could be dangerous politically for him, Ephraim. Those protests, by the way, Ephraim, are going right up the street from our bureau. The combination of the protests, some are anti-Netanyahu. Second, there are some restaurant owners and others that are affected economically by the COVID-19 restrictions. And actually, third, there are anarchists. It's reflective of what's happening in the United States right now. There's talk of possible elections in November. I would also say that Netanyahu still does have a lot of support here in Israel, but really, at least in the streets right now, a lot of demonstrations against him.
Quite a bit going on. What do you have planned for this week's Jerusalem Dateline?
Well, we have an interview with Enes Kanter, that Boston Celtics center, about what's happening inside Turkey. We have a story, a rear actually, about the Hezbollah terror tunnel. We had a rare look inside that tunnel that's under the border between Lebanon and Israel. And we have a story about an excavation that goes back to the time of King Hezekiah, about 2,700 years ago. And we also have a story about Soapy. It's one of the Israeli innovations, actually, that's helping combat COVID-19. It's a state-of-the-art way to actually wash your hands. So that'll all be on this week's Jerusalem Dateline. Hope people can tune in.
Indeed, we do. Thank you so much, Chris. I want to remind you at home, you can catch Jerusalem Dateline this evening at 9:30 Eastern. And, of course, you can find that on the CBN News Channel. The coronavirus pandemic has affected how Americans read their Bible. A new study shows the number of adults who read Scripture is declining drastically. A report by the State of the Bible 2020 says daily Bible reading has dropped from 14% to 9%. 47% of the people say the pandemic has strengthened their faith, while 38% of people felt the pandemic has had a negative impact on their ability to worship God. Coming up, some California residents say enough is enough. We're going to hear why they are hitting the streets and fighting for their constitutional rights. That's all coming up next right here on CBN NewsWatch. Stay with us.
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres-Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
COVID-19 hit California hard, and its restrictions that have been enacted are some that residents hope would be lifted, and they haven't been. Many are now struggling to work and provide for their families. Our Mark Martin spoke with Randy Thomason of the SaveCalifornia.com about peaceful protesters rallying statewide for their constitutional rights.
Randy, tell us what you believe is happening in California when it comes to the constitutional rights of residents.
Well, they're being squashed. When the government says your church can't meet, you can't work, you can't earn, you can't shop, you can't play, this is basically inhuman. And people are right to be frustrated, and we encourage them to resist this government tyranny. In fact, the closing churches, quote, order is not even a law. It's not a written law passed by the legislature and signed by the governor. It's not even an executive order under the California Emergency Services Act. No, it's unelected public employees issuing a so-called order. Excuse me, it's a guideline because they can't order anything. And then when they say, well, we suggest you think about not singing or closing your church meetings, well, those are put under considerations. So this is a toothless beast. The emperor has no clothes. There's nothing to be afraid of. And most sheriff's departments and police departments aren't even going to enforce this. So pastors shouldn't have much to be afraid of. They should fear God instead.
Tell us about the rallies that are taking place in different parts of the state.
Well, now that the anarchists of Antifa and Black Lives Matter have been sort of dissipated and in some places like Portland settling down because of Trump's troops, the constitutional rallies and protests against the lockdown, against the schools being told don't open, against Newsom, there's a recall effort going. That is starting up. So all over California, we're starting to see these even pro-police rallies against Black Lives Matter's agenda, which is defund the police, a stupid, dangerous idea. We want to be pro-police to inhibit crime in our communities. So lots of rallies and protests, and they're listed on our website, savecalifornia.com.
One of the big concerns for many people is being able to return to work and make a living. How are the state guidelines and governor's mandates hurting workers?
Oh, you know, you could interview your whole audience in the lockdown states. They're losing their jobs. Their health is being hurt. They're losing their homes. They're not being able to pay bills. They are being destroyed. It's almost like a foreign army has come in and said, we will take everything you have and we will imprison you. So really, we have domestic enemies on our own soil who are hurting us. Understand that this lockdown model is unproven, unmerited, destructive. True epidemiologists of a couple decades ago know that you always quarantine the sick, but never the healthy. And you never destroy the economy like the liberal left has decided that is very opportunistic for them in this election year.
We know there is a delicate balance that has to be considered when it comes to health concerns and constitutional rights. How can that be achieved?
Well, I really am suspicious of today's public health officers. You see, public health officers used to believe that you quarantine the sick, not the healthy. Well, that's changed. And now we have public health officers who believe that they're king and they can order anything. And that can destroy your business. It can destroy your family finances. And it can destroy your God-given property rights, parental rights, your constitutional rights of religious freedom, free speech, and freedom of assembly. And so these public health officers today, I would not be sad to see them go. Health is an individual responsibility. And when the government comes in and says, no, 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 you're just a number, I'm going to almost consider you like an animal. You're no longer responsible. You are going to be controlled by us. See, that's dangerous. Then we're no longer free, but we're slaves.
All right, Randy Thomason with SaveCalifornia.com. Thanks for the update, sir.
Thank you.
Still ahead, the Boston Celtics and Indiana Pacers will face off in the NBA playoffs. We're going to hear from Celtics center Enes Kanter and get some insight into how the league is handling the coronavirus. Stay with us. You're watching CBN NewsWatch.
Having sex before you marry is a bad idea.
Don't tell me there's no such thing as gun violence.
That just depends on your definition of when life begins.
Watch Dan and Dale tackle trending topics that test your faith on the next Faith Wire, Monday night at 9:30. The Global Lane takes you around the world, providing facts over fiction.
What might rising trade and geopolitical tensions mean for you on the home front?
With over 45 years of experience, award-winning journalist Gary Lane brings you the truth from a global angle.
What about the issue of immigration?
World news analysis you won't see anywhere else.
And it's all right here on the Global Lane.
Watch The Global Lane, Thursday night at 9:30.
It's like a great attraction. It starts a chain reaction. But I'm more satisfaction. I love the way this joy makes me move. Yeah, I got that. I dance around because I got it. I move around because I got it.
News from the world of sports. Going to turn now to CBN Sports Director Sean Brown for that. So, Sean, the Washington football team, formerly known as the Redskins, has a new name. What is it, and how are fans responding? I think you can tell how I feel. There you go.
They do have a name, Ephraim. Are you ready?
Yeah, sure.
The Washington football team.
Really? Really?
That they're playing with, at least for this season, until they find a new name to replace the R word. We're going to go with the R word for now. But yes, the Washington football team. How are fans, responding to the name? I'm not sure. This is my home team. I don't know how if fans actually like the Washington football team as our name. A little embarrassing. However, we understand the process. And hey, it comes down to them winning games. If they win games, no one's going to care that they're the Washington football team. And the name that they come up with to replace the R word will only enhance, what they've already started. So it comes down to winning games, man. You win games, no one's going to care that it's the Washington football team.
Yeah, let's embrace that this is temporary. Okay.
For now, man.
All right, for now. Sports are slowly but surely beginning to start up again. Let's talk about what's happening with Major League Baseball.
Yeah, man. So opening day was yesterday. Last night, the New York Yankees, Washington Nationals, the Dodgers, and the Giants went head-to-head, which were great games, of course. The Nationals Yankees game were rained out, so you had some rain delays, but that's baseball. What I'm looking at is that fans are used to watching the games through television. Nothing replaces being at the ballpark. But for the players, you have to imagine that what they're going through playing in an empty stadium. Part of the jazz about being a player is listening to the fans roar when you get a hit, roar when you get a run, and that's just not there. And so I wonder how that's going to affect the way that they play. But I imagine that it would be like playing at home, at your home field when you were a kid, and you're playing with a bunch of your friends. And so if you look at it like that, hey, maybe the level of competition will still continue to be there. So it's exciting to see baseball. I'm excited. They're going to have 60 games of a regular season and then a postseason. And so, hey, I'm just glad baseball is back. We get to watch it again. It's going to be in our living rooms. But nonetheless, baseball is back, and I'm excited for it.
I think we all are very happy to have some sports to talk about. Of course, the NBA playoffs are starting soon as well. Enes Kanter with the Boston Celtics told CBN News playing in the league this season is like playing in a bubble. Take a listen.
NBA and also Player Association, NBPA, doing an amazing job just making sure that all the coaching staff, players, and all the workers are safe and healthy. And the rules are very strict. We are actually getting tested every day. And we are not allowed to leave the hotel, or we have to quarantine in our room for 8 days. But other than that, I feel like we have everything we need here. The pool, golfing, and just basketball, my teammates. So I think it's been good so far.
All right, I'll take that. What can you tell us about the playoffs, Sean?
Oh man, it's going to be exciting. The NBA is they've been playing for a week, just having scrimmage games. But yes, it starts up July 30th. I'm excited. I can't wait for that either. The Celtics are ranked right now 3rd in the division, or in the conference rather, and I'm excited, man. It's they're going to be back. It's going to come down, as he said in the interview, it's going to come down to how teams can gel together, man. They've been out of it for a while, so trying to adjust and beginning to gel together as a team is what it's going to come down to. But you got to look at the Bucks, the Raptors, the Celtics in the top 3 in the East. But I'm looking at the Clippers and the Lakers in the West. It's going to be an exciting playoffs, and I know we all can't wait to see it. So I'm very, very excited for NBA basketball to get back, man. I can't wait.
I'm with you. My son is a Celtics fan, so we are both pulling for them. Thank you, Sean, for your time. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Coming up, we hear why one pastor is marching through the streets of Chicago and working to see gang members saved. We got that story for you. Stay with us.
Homefront.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Homefront, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Homefront. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
On the Homefront, Tuesday morning at 10:30.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government.
My focus has been trying to really make sure we have the future leaders we need for the bench and the bar and for society generally.
You'll learn from highly credentialed leaders who are current and former judges, distinguished scholars, and ACLJ counsel.
I'm so glad I chose Regent. The relationships here have been amazing. The faculty have been amazing. Not everybody's called to the same thing when they leave law school, but they're called by a God who has a purpose for their lives, and He is going to use that education to make a difference in the world.
Regent will prepare you to be a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer. To start your rewarding law career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July. Apply today.
Welcome back. Violence has plagued the streets of Chicago for years, and just recently, children as young as 1 year old are dying in the streets. That is why New City Fellowship Pastor Edgar Rodriguez is hitting the streets with his team to pray and see a change in the city. He began to organize prayer walks in hopes of sharing the gospel with the community and ultimately seeing an end to the violence.
Chicago, we need to stand up. Church, we need to rise up. There are activities and events happening all throughout the city. Prayer walks, events hosted where we can march in the streets, gather together in single places to seek the Lord. I'm just a small part of this piece of what God really wants to do in and through His people in the city of Chicago. I hope you decide to join, not sit on the sidelines, not wait for somebody else to do the job, not wait for somebody else to take on the hurt of those who have lost loved ones. Stand in the gap. Be present in your city. Carry your cross. Follow Jesus and display Him in all the places that God has you.
Pastor Rodriguez tells CBN News he wants to see the kingdom of God push back against the darkness and see people put down their guns and walk away from a life of crime to surrendering and walking with Christ. It's certainly possible. Time now for your Friday Faithful, and I hope you will join me in this prayer of gratitude. Father, thank you for making me your first priority, even when you've been my last resort. I must do better. Thank you for your patience while I am still in process. With that word, I encourage you to make today a fabulous Friday. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. I want to remind you, you can find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel and online at cbnnews.com. Thank you for watching. Goodbye and God bless.